Find quite a bit of interest in coming along to this building and saying, well, here we are. This was built to house the Indian staff of old Sir John Craycroft Wilson, who farmed these areas in the first days.
The building was, it was pretty sad really. All of the stone walls were intact, but there was no roof and virtually no floors in the building. There's a wee bit of roof on the back face on the lower slope there. But yeah, it was very derelict and yeah, pretty depressing really, I suppose.
We organised some working bees to clean up the ground and make it look a bit tidier. And then we started to look for possible alternative uses of Old Stonehouse to the student Christian movement.
Both Betty and Norman had been very enthusiastic SCMers themselves, so they knew the building and had been here, I think it might have been as early as the 50s, 1950s, so they were very familiar with the building.
What we were trying to develop was a society. It was no use restoring Old Stonehouse unless you had somebody to use it afterwards.
The community centre itself was just a group of people that met at one another's houses, and rather than here, this certainly wasn't suitable in those days for any meetings. They had fairs, stalls, cake stalls, all sorts of fundraising activities, and I guess the fundraising side of it was the start of the community centre as such.
We had asked Heathcote County Council for funds and active participation in the thing, but they were not very impressed with our ideas.
Old Stonehouse wasn't well known really, except in the very local area here, and I don't think the history of it was particularly well known. There was quite a lot of people, of course, thought it should just get bowled because it was just a derelict old building after the fire.
Betty got herself onto the Heathcote County Council primarily to be able to bring this project to fruition.
She couldn't bear to be left vandalised and all the history of the past. So she was a wonderful woman, Betty. I admired her terribly. And she just bulldozed everybody into sort of doing something. Something had to be done.
Betty knew a moderate amount about influencing people, and within 12 months she'd secured some backing from both City Council and Heathcote County Council.
And then, of course, they had this absolutely fantastic offer of the slate roofs off the Marylands Boys' School out at the Catholic school out at St John of God. And the slate roof could be theirs if they came and got it.
It was really fantastic because other than that, the building would have had a corrugated iron roof. It was the only one that we could have afforded. And of course, it's so much nicer to have the slate. The major difficulty with this restoration was that the building had to be earthquake-proofed. In the centre sort of section of the building, there's a steel frame through there and heavier reinforced concrete area. So that's the main sort of structural piece to give it some real stability.
All those cement blocks outside the front door of Old Stonehouse, together with the raised domed areas of approach to the front door and the kitchen door, they were done by some of the community centre people themselves. And the landscape architect remarked afterwards he'd never seen so much and such good work done by volunteers. Norman
Was the absolute master at talking into something that you didn't really want to do, and in such a beautiful way that you couldn't possibly refuse him.
I didn't have to twist their arms too hard.
The plaster was just a nice sort of soft finish rather than try and make it too accurate, it was sort of left in that sort of troweled off sort of state. The circular staircase was chosen because it sort of took up less of the floor space, giving us a greater usage of the main floor here. I guess the other thing, particularly the carpet, is which has the crest of Sir John Craycroft Wilson woven into it.
The building is just an amazing effort by Norm Roberts and his team, and it staggers me what they've done to it. They got more money out of my father again, but he was quite happy to do that. And yes, it's been a privilege to see, you know, one of our old buildings being restored like that.
There's such a nice lot of people come along here, and we sort of feel it's nice to be involved with people. The charges for community groups using the building are fairly minimal.
Anybody who comes along, I think, always comes back to something they want to join, and everybody enjoys the atmosphere.
Well, I feel it's a huge achievement reflected in the community response.
Well, this building to us represents a real community spirit, and it comes freely down from Sir John Craycroft Wilson and his descendants, how they've always treasured this building.
So many people are involved with working in it and looking after it. It's become a wonderful focal point for the district, and a wonderful way of really carrying on our family traditions too.
I think it's really the most remarkable community centre I've ever come across. All the districts have got them, but often they're little old halls, and they're old Sunday school halls or old RSA halls that have been converted. Some are not much better than sheds, but this is remarkably historic and interesting and picturesque.
Every time I drive past or walk past this place, I think it's a beautiful building, and it's holding up so well.
I wouldn't say that I'm so proud of it as relieved that having twisted the arms of a good many people, a great relief that the thing eventually succeeded.
The object is to continually improve the building. As we get funding in from the hirings, we use the money to improve the inside of the building.
Without input from the councils, I don't think it would be in the state it is today. There's been a huge amount of money to get this place going.
In terms of a historical association, having a cob colonial house just within a stone's throw of a rather much grander stone building built for an entirely different purpose, it's something that's almost unique in New Zealand.
The gardens are so right for the setting of the old house. They're very formal, and the council provide the plants, but the gardeners do the work.
Oh, the gardening team are absolutely brilliant, and they have been winning a number of awards for their efforts, and that is one of the big selling points for the building. A lot of the people that come here for weddings, they absolutely love the gardens.
We come here every Monday and garden and keep the grounds and take great pride in it, and I've found that a very satisfying way of coming back to carry on with family connections and traditions.
A lot of people walk through here, but it's surprising the number of people in Christchurch who still don't know where the old stone house is.
It's an icon of Christchurch in the early days. It's a beautiful old building. It's terribly interesting history that it survived a massive fire and that people minded enough to get it rebuilt.
Christchurch is short enough of stone buildings, so I'm delighted to have been involved, and yeah, very proud of what everybody achieved here.
The building is just an amazing effort by Norm Roberts and his team, and it really gives me a big thrill that, you know, that people have remembered it, and I'm part of that history.
Now that most of the major jobs have been finished, we've got to the stage where we'd like more people in the community to join up with the organisation and enjoy fellowship and good times here.
when you think of all those voluntary helpers, worked weekend after weekend, they did a tremendous job. And I think they were so happy doing it.